You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru attı. Kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Zuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet. Ve
Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 241 of the Black Eagles podcast, and I am your host, Sinan. That's right. Give me a round of applause. Back live from New York City, where, pleasant evening weather-wise. Bit of rain to break that crazy heat, but it's done so successfully. Things are sort of calming down a little early. It's not even September yet, but yeah, things have been not like the crazy summer. I know a lot of folks out in Europe have had it pretty hard this summer, and probably in Turkey and in other places, right? Like right now in China, there's a huge issue with the heat. But not so bad here so far. This is a long-winded weather metaphor. Anyway, just as the weather has been fairly pleasant suddenly, with the rain, the crisis breaking, things have been good for Beşiktaş suddenly. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, well, brace yourselves, folks. Of course, boy, where do I even begin? We have so much to discuss. And first, let's talk about some rumors. There's some really fun ones to talk about, and I'll get into that, I think, to begin the episode with. And then, of course, we're going to talk about a little bit of a match, our third of the season against Fatih Karagümrük. So let's get it going.
Operation is in effect as of right now.
Yes, sir. So, first of all, the match against Fatih Karagümrük would be, as I said, our third, and we have gone 1-1-0. A win and a draw in our first two, of course, for anyone who's forgotten. An unfortunate draw in our last one. But so we were obviously hoping to bounce back. Fatih Karagümrük was in a sort of interesting situation. They got a bye week in their second week of the season, which is a bit rough, to be honest, especially for a new coach. Team looking to find its identity early on. Had a rough outing against Alanyaspor in their first match of the season, losing 4-2. But so, that aside, and before we even get into head-to-heads and lineups and all that, in the build-up to this match, the big issue that we faced, and this really bit us in the butts, right, in that second match especially, was a lack of depth, especially in the center of our midfield, right? We're playing with three guys now, having moved away from the three-man back line, at least temporarily, until, the staff is available. We need a central back that we can rely on if we're going to do that. But so, what all of it amounted to, what it has sort of rounded out as, is that we currently have, of course, Gedson, who was our sort of one of our marquee signings initially, right, before that late burst going into the training camp, that first training camp. But so Gedson, of course, was an important piece of that midfield. Salih Uçan is a guy who had played fairly well all preseason and brought that form into the regular season, it seemed. I won't spoil anything about this match. And then next to them was the sort of question mark. Where do they go with that, right? It's the Joseph position, and you had the obvious Joseph being out and then Atiba being out as well. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with Berkay Vardar, in this case. Or potentially Kartal Kayra Yilmaz, although I think most would agree he would probably be best served as an 8 rather than a 6. So, What do we do? Actually, a lot of people have been hoping he'd play in a 6 rather than 8. I mean, whatever, right? At the end of the day, Kartal Kayra Yilmaz and Berkay Vardar are fairly raw prospects. Maybe not ready for this level. Haven't shown quite enough for us to say that they definitely are, or that they even definitely need to be relied on as such. So even with Joseph back, we still have some question marks, right? Atiba being the sort of, old hat, if you will, the steady hand. Can't necessarily rely on him where he is in his career, and I don't think he wants to overexert himself and put himself at risk of not playing in his World Cup, which is for him, I think, a kind of career event, right? So, we need at least one, maybe 2 central midfielders, at least in the meantime, depending on the status of Atiba, right? We haven't really heard much about his injury. And Joseph, right? We know he's back in training now, but that doesn't necessarily mean we need to throw him out there and risk re-injuring him for a longer period of time, especially given the fact that, he's really the guy we need. We're not going to get another defensive-minded midfielder. You can maybe slot Jedson in there against weaker sides with their attacking abilities. But for the major games, for the matches against rivals, derbies, and the like, we're gonna need a guy like Joseph manning that back line, or manning the back of our midfield, rather. Sort of potentially sliding into the defense and giving support. So, as such, we need depth in the other areas of the field, right? Berkay Vardar could theoretically be his backup, and maybe Kartal Kayra Yilmaz, or some variation where we sort of change things tactically if he needs to play. Whatever that scenario is. What it means is that Jedson and Sally could both theoretically use at least reliable backups, right? So, option number 1, a guy worth mentioning, and a name that we've sort of been hearing about for a long time, and more and more it's sounding like an inevitability, is the young Sivas 21-year-old Sivas central midfielder Kerem Atakan Keskin. I think he's an 8. So that's one bit of depth. You hope by bringing him in, that means we're fairly certain that he is, we're able to rely on him more than Kartal Kayra Yilmaz, for example, right? But then the other big bit of news, and he could theoretically function more as a 10, but certainly he could fill the role of an attacking playmaker in that number 8 role as well. And that is former Tottenham star and current Everton, I guess we could say backup, although he's not featuring, and in part that's because he's on his way out. His name is, of course, DELE ALLI. He is only 26, and he'll be 26 until April. So much of this season, is his 26th year on this earth, right? But so that's important to note, right? He's a man who's fallen from grace rather quickly, but it's not like he's an old man by any stretch. And any interest he has in resuscitating his career, the time is obviously now-ish, right? And frankly, if he's as interested as is being reported in coming to Turkey and playing for Beşiktaş specifically, again, I don't know how accurate that kind of reporting is, but it suggests that he wants to do just that, right? He wants to regain his footing. He wants to kind of feel good about himself again. And if he does specifically have an interest in Beşiktaş, that he must be aware of the fans and the volume that they can make, right? And the support they tend to give successful players, which would mean he has some confidence that he could succeed still. But it just generally suggests that he wants a revitalization, right? If it's just money he wants, there are much easier options where he could cash in, and showing the desire to go to a kind of different culture, right? As Turkey is relative to where he's been in England his whole career, suggests he would have been open to maybe China or Russia or Saudi Arabia or somewhere else he could have gotten a lot of money quite easily. But so for him to choose this specific place, right? It gives good vibes, I think we could say. And so it really does seem legit. I don't want to puff smoke up anyone here. For a while it was like, is this really happening? That can't really be, can it? And increasingly it seems to be the case. There's talk of it's a loan with an option to buy. I think we're paying him like $2.5 million or thereabouts, 2.6 or something, which for a star of his caliber, not really a surprise whatsoever. There's going to be an option to buy, which is surprisingly affordable, and it's something weird to like. The issue right now is something to do with taxes in England and like the way that his contract was set up. But so somehow, I don't know how this plays into it, but in order to sort of account for that, they're going to be doing a thing where it's like a $6 million buyout option in January, or an $8 million buyout option, but at the end of the year, next summer. And neither of them is exorbitant for a guy, I think, with Everton, if he'd met certain standards and played a certain amount of games and contributed in a certain way, they would have had to compensate him up to 40 mil, compensate Tottenham, that is. So what does it all mean for us? It's hard to say. It really honestly is hard to say. Is he gonna definitely like regain his best form for us and make it all worthwhile? Who knows? What's very exciting is that we're not really locking ourselves into anything at all, right? We're potentially getting a world-class talent who, with his mind right, applying himself the way he has in his career to great effect. We could be getting a guy who, we spend 6 or 8 million for and then flip for quite a bit more down the line, in a year or two. And the fact that he's only 26, right? You could be 28. And the way those Premier League sides spend money, even the likes of like Aston Villa and Crystal Palace, right? I mean, we could make money. But even beyond that, we're bringing a real talent, showing ourselves as a place where guys can come and revitalize themselves, and that could help us financially in cases such as these. So yeah, good news all around, I think we could say. Beyond that, on the back line, another huge need for us, right? We're playing Necip in this Fatih Karagümrük match. There's talk of Isak Hien, a guy, Swedish dude, plays for Djurgården up in Sweden. And I'm not honestly even entirely certain that this dude is Swedish himself. I mean, he is. Yeah, he is Swedish. There you go. Apparently he was initially a striker, but moved back to center back and then flourished in his new position. He's of Ghanaian descent, or from Ghana, historically his family's ancestors are. But so, he chose Sweden, it looks like, as his national side, and he's had a fairly good career with Djurgården thus far. He is only 23, so that he's potentially, I think the hope is he's like a Kim Min-jae or Attila Jalai type, Nelson, the dude for freaking Galatasaray. Most of these guys are overrated, in my honest opinion. But, a guy who can find moderate success with a big club in Turkey and have a large resale value when we choose later on down the line. Okay, whatever. Maybe. At this point, though, we really desperately need a Turkish central defender, right? This is a fairly well-known fact, especially if we want to play with like DELE, ALLI, Jedson, and Josef in the midfield. So, are there any Turkish options is a question, right? Well, initially, speaking of Isak Hien, or however one pronounces his name, I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. There were rumors that we were like laying off and allowing Hellas Verona to swoop in and buy him because they were interested. And in exchange, looking at Koray Günther, maybe them sort of giving us the deal we were looking for, right? Like the mill off. We wanted like to spend 1.5 rather than 2.5. Or whatever the rumor was on Koray Günther. So that would have been one easy option. Secondly, however, is that apparently the agent of Kaan Ayhan would be the preferable option, I think, for most, was in attendance in our home match this week against Fatih Karagümrük. So that obviously adds an element to all of this that's fairly exciting and leaves many questions to be answered. There's been very little talk about that. Like, they seem to be somewhat open about the DELE ALLI stuff and all of that, but like as far as the central defender has gone, there's been no like official word. And you know how that is. You know, typically with our board, they do things without us knowing about it. So, to be continued, I guess we could say. So let's talk about this match against Fatih Karagümrük. And of course, we're already talking about a match that occurred on Sunday, August 21st, right? I always release these episodes on Monday night here in New York, so Tuesday morning, right? So we can talk about all the matches and talk about the standings. But so yeah, we're talking about a couple nights ago now already at this point, or one, or whatever. It's confusing, but you know what I'm saying. So we were hosting Fatih Karagümrük, and it, filled the stadium. Great fan volume, seemed like, which you love to see. Especially the new guys seem to really thrive on that. Our coach, as we all know, seems to always enjoy that. So yeah, we're living up to our end on that front. In the lineup, right, we had Ersin Destanoglu in goal, Necip Uysal, as I sort of alluded to earlier, next to Romain Saiz, Arthur Masuaku on the left side opposite Valentin Rosier. I also alluded to this. Berkay Vardar was in the back of our midfield in front of Salih Uçan and Jedson Fernandes on the wings. George Kavankuru on the left side. No surprise to anyone. He's played well for us thus far. Opposite, Jackson Muleka on the right side. And of course, Rashid Ghazal chalked up as an injury late in the week. Unfortunate. I mean, had been obviously something that had occurred previous in the last match, but they didn't know if he'd be able to play or not, and then sure enough, he wasn't. And up top, of course, Wout Weghorst, the tall striker. Now, in our opposition, of course, 36-year-old Italian Emiliano Viviano in their goal. Ahead of him, Ibrahim Dresevic, 25-year-old Kosovan central defender, next to Burak Bekkaroglu, 25-year-old Turk. On the right side, David Birashi, 28-year-old Italian. On the left side, Caner Erkin, the 33-year-old pain in the butt that we've all dealt with as a member of our team, as a member of our opposition. In their midfield, Otabek Shukurov as a defensive midfielder, 26-year-old Uzbeki. Next to 29-year-old Russian Magomed Ozduev. Up ahead of them, Levent Merjan, 21-year-old German Turk. On their wings, Ahmed Musa, 29-year-old Nigerian. Opposite, Fabio Borini, the 31-year-old Italian. The very good pedigree, obviously. And up top, 30-year-old Senegalese Mbaye Diagne. A man who's been around the block, right? Galatasaray, formerly. Of course, it's worth noting that our manager, Valérien Ismail, would be opposite Andrea Pirlo, the well-known Italian midfielder / now coach of Fatih Karagümrük. And that's why you see guys like David Birashi, Borini. I think they have another Italian. Yes, indeed. He came in, Matteo Ricci, 28-year-old. And that is it as far as I'm aware. But yeah, so, definitely an interesting squad for them. But so let's talk about this match, shall we? So right out of the gates, just fantastic all-around football. we took we were the aggressors early on. Although it was all about that press. So it's not necessarily, it wasn't reliant on possession. I remember back in the day people joking, like when we weren't playing particularly well, they'd make fun of us, because like the defenders of Sergen or whoever, Chanel, back in the day would always say, but our possession levels were great, which of course does not necessarily translate into anything, because one can very effectively play without the ball. And in fact, we are becoming increasingly a great example of it. And yeah, especially in this first half, just phenomenal. And we just came out with energy. Ozdoev, the Russian midfielder, got a yellow card in the 6th minute, leading to a corner kick by Salih Uçan. Salih Uçan would find Roman Saiz on the far post, who'd head it right down perfectly into the path of Wout Weghorst, who would try to volley it somewhat carelessly because he was right in front of the goal. He has the whole thing in front of him. It just doesn't quite come off, and it bings off the post. And it's like, oh no, this isn't good. Not like one of these Seferovic, right? This happened with Galatasaray, where he had a terrible match for them recently, missing chances in a similar fashion. Although it wasn't like, this was one of those ones that happened. And he got there and did, whatever. I'm not talking about Galatasaray. Let's keep talking about us. Because sure enough, just 3 minutes later, Nkudu again driving up the left side, sending in a lovely ball for Salih Uçan, who sends in a tough shot, and it's a handball? Is it not a handball? How is it not a handball? Could it possibly not be a handball? My answer to that is no. I mean, I think it was Dresevic who uses a whole lot of, they claim, shoulder. For me, it looks like a little bit of elbow, or just straight up like that upper arm. I don't understand how there's not a handball called here. Somehow it isn't. Of course. And then another post by Jackson Muleka on another nice cross. But it's fine. Don't worry, because in the 16th minute, we're bringing the ball up on a lovely counter. Somehow it's counted as the 18th. I don't know how, but Valentin Jose with just an A+ cross onto the head of Wout Weghorst, who dives in and puts a lot of power on it. Just drives it into the back of the net. Goal, 1-0. Wout Weghorst celebrates with the eagle claw, and I think it is his newborn daughter, whose name is Dinia or something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it, or if that's even what it is, but congratulations to him, of course, and just, you love to see the fans interacting with him well, and everything going smoothly. He's had a number of assists already, 2 in our previous matches, so he gets the goal, and yeah, just celebrations, everyone's thrilled, stadium's rocking, and yeah, we kept going. Salih, outside of the box in the 20th minute, sends in a shot, 8+++, just driving in with curl. Viviano does incredibly well to get onto it, and even then he can just steer it onto the post, and it bounces out rather than in. I mean, just a lot of bad luck, because he did everything right by him. I mean, Salih Uçan, and of course Viviano, great save as well. But so yeah, we're just keeping it going. We're not giving them a moment's rest. I haven't mentioned a single highlight for Fatih Karagümrük, and that's for good reason. There weren't any. 30th minute, Shukudov forces a save from deep. Like, this was all they could get, was a shot from way out. Ersin, equal to it. Quite equal to it. He did really well. And then, in the 33rd minute, again, it's counted as the 35th. I don't understand how they always add up a minute there, but maybe they count it from when they start up the next goal, or the next, when after the goal. But 33rd minute, Rosier is bringing the ball up, kind of pauses, hands it off, if you will, to Salih Uçan, who does a little spin, kind of nice, but maybe it seemed unnecessary, but maybe it wasn't, because it puts him in position to use his left foot, which he does to devastating effect, putting the ball perfectly in the path of Georges Cavin, and Nkudu does quite well to control it in the direction that he's moving, and then just send in a ripper of a shot into the low back corner of the back far post of the net, rather, not post, right? And it's a goal, 2-0. Just absolutely stunning football at this point for Beşiktaş, capping off what's been a fantastic half. almost scored again right before the half. Nkudu again finding Rosier at the edge of the box, far end of the box. He doesn't quite get onto it. If he gets any bit of his foot on it, he can probably put it into the back of the net or cross it back into the center for an easy goal. Sadly, it doesn't happen. We go into the half up 2-0, but feeling fantastic, I think we can say. In the 40th minute, Muleka got himself the yellow card. 42nd, Berkay Vardar, and he was playing recklessly. He needed to come out, it seemed. He could have easily gotten his second yellow card, not far thereafter. Mbaye Diagne gets his instead. That in the 43rd. And so the one substitution made at the half is Berkay Vardar coming off. He had a reckless, clumsy first half, frankly. So I don't think anyone was too shocked. It was a good decision by Coach Ismail. And he brings on Kartal Kayra Yilmaz. And yeah, again, we come out looking good. 49th minute, a corner kick from Salih finds Jackson Muleka, and bang, he heads it in just perfectly. Perfect run from him. And apparently the assist is credit to Masuaku. I thought it was Salih Uchan on the assist, but no. It's Arthur Masuaku. Salih assisted the Georges Kevin Nkudu goal in the 35th minute, as I mentioned, with that beautiful pass off his left foot. Valentin Rosier assisting the Wout Weghorst goal, our first, and Masuaku assisting Jackson Muleka in the 50th minute. So it's interesting. I didn't know he took the corner, or maybe he headed it, but I don't think so. I think it was a clean, just lovely cross into the path of Muleka, making a good run, front post, buries it into the back of the net. High, past the keeper. 3-0 in the 50th minute. And yeah, we're feeling good. We're feeling great, even. But, of course, as you'd expect, in the 52nd minute, a corner kick, John Erkin finds Diagne in the box. Just, I don't know how, he's sort of surrounded, but the ball just drops right to him. He slots it in with relative ease. Not really anyone's fault, as far as Ersin anyway. I don't know if a defender was poorly placed, or I don't know how it drops to Diagne. Maybe it was just a really, we all know John Erkin has that in him. 1 in 30 crosses in a match will just be perfect, while the other 29 are just pissing you off to no end. But that's not our problem anymore. So yeah, they're back in it, sort of 3-1. We still, again, we're playing the best football of the season in this half, and it's carried on to the second, even despite this goal. I think till about the 60th minute that's the case. In the 63rd minute, changes are made. Jimmy Durmaz on for Levent Merjan, Ibrahim Akali on for Ahmed Musa. This is right after, by the way, and so the last sort of flourish, the cap on our just fantastic spells. Maybe it was the 63rd minute. Jackson Muleka taking it up the right side. Finds Wout Weghorst in the middle. Perfectly, in fact, with a cross. And Weghorst slots it into the back of the net. Except Wout Weghorst is 1 foot, not even, maybe I don't know, 6 inches offside. Half a foot. Half of his foot, rather, not the metric unit or anything. And that's not even, whatever. You know what I'm saying, folks. Stumbling over math terminology. But, yeah, the goal doesn't count. He's just barely offsides. But it's fine. We think we've pretty much got this, even despite having given up that goal. And then things turn. And the reason things turn, in my opinion, is, and I think many agree, on the one hand, as I said, they bring on Jimmy Durmaz and Ibrahim Akali. So they have legs, fresh legs, if you will. And we don't make any subs. And of course, where we really need to be making subs is in the center of our midfield. Salih Uchan and Jedson are just exhausted at this point. Although, to Jedson's defense, he plays his best football of his short tenure with us in the second half, despite being tired. So perhaps it's Salih who clearly needs to come out. Maybe someone with a little more defensive mentality as well for him, just to kind of keep things steady. Certainly, I think Nkudu could come off, even though he's playing quite well in this match, to be frank. Just to keep him healthy, right? We know his ability to be injured. So yeah, fatigue has set in, and suddenly they're playing with a little bit more energy, and they're getting half chances, not real ones, honestly. And it's not, again, we kind of dead the game to fairly decent effect until in the 83rd minute, Colin Kazim Richards comes on for Fabio Borini. Oh, excuse me. Dropping things. Interesting to see Colin Kazim Richards in this league still. Back, rather. And Matteo Ricci comes on for Magomed Ozdoev, who'd already garnered a yellow card earlier in the match. Salih Uchan, by the way, got a yellow card in the 67th minute. Not sure I remember to mention that. But so yeah, despite them seeming to turn the match for the most part, no real chances for them, and we're sort of past the 80-minute mark. But then, boom, in the 84th minute, they almost make it 3-2. It's Janer again with a cross. Ersin kind of tries to paw it over, but fails, and it drops into the path of Matteo Ricci, who just entered the match. Ricci sends it in. Again, he's just fresh into this match. Perhaps someone who hadn't just entered would have done better in this scenario, having been more, attuned to the pace of the match and all that. But Ricci sends a shot right back at Ersin, basically. He saves it, well, and gets a knee on it and kind of forces it out so there's not another opportunity for them. But certainly at that point, they could make it 3-2. And they're, we've seen this happen already once. But instead, in the 89th minute, Jedson dribbling up again, and he's done this very well all season, but in the second half especially, I think he ends up running the most for Beşiktaş, out of anyone, in fact, in this match. And it's all in the second half where he really exerts himself, holds the ball well when we dead the game. And so he's very effective in this regard and very important in keeping them at one goal, even though it could have been two at that point. But sure enough, we were rewarded for our patience and our generally solid defending in the 89th minute when Jedson, again, brings it up. Nice little pass, lovely pass to Kartal Kayra Yilmaz out wide, who sends in a great one-touch, one-time cross low into the path of Valentin Rosier, who's running into the box. Couple steps, slides it just perfectly past the keeper into the back of the net low, and we have secured this sucker 4-1. Caner Erkin gets a yellow card in the 92nd minute. Very lazy, poor tackle. You hate to see it, but he's a jerk. It's not really a shocker. Umut Meraş enters in the 93rd minute for Arthur Masuaku, as well as Cenk Tosun for Wout Weghorst, and I think a lot of people had been clamoring for him to make changes prior to this. Perhaps stubborn on the part of Valérien Ismail. No doubt stubborn. I was calling for Nkoudou to come out at the 65th minute, as I recall. And again, not because he necessarily needed to come out fitness-wise, just because I wanted to make sure he stayed healthy. He's been so vital for us up till now in this early, young season. But so yeah, just fantastic stuff. Obviously, the match is over about a minute after Cenk Tosun and Umut Meraş enter the match. So that's rough for them. But again, it is what it is. We win 4-1. Not any major complaints except for the stubborn refusal to put in sub. And again, to his defense, I think the real kind of criminal in all of this, the ones who need to be held culpable, is the board, right? Because we didn't have, after Kartal Kayra Yilmaz comes in at the half, we have no central midfielders on the bench. Zero. So that's not good. They should have at least brought in this Keskin guy, the Sivas kid, before the match, just to make sure we had someone to bring in should we need one, and we did. So, that was unfortunate. But we survived it, no injuries, we win big, and I think we have some confidence now to build on, that, especially those first, 63 minutes, maybe 65, we'll round up, were fantastic. The best football we've seen all season, since maybe, the friendly against Mainz, perhaps. And so, yeah, just absolutely great stuff. I suppose we got to talk about stats, right? First of all, quite shockingly, they had possession now. I mean, it's not that shocking. They had 53% to our 47. And given that they're down by 3 goals for most of the match, or, let's say 2 goals for most of the match, but 3 goals for much of it. Yeah, it makes sense that they'd be the ones holding more of the ball, trying to press, trying to get back into this game with some desperation. Again, a strength of ours now is the ability to sit back and then hit on the counter, to play without the ball well, effectively, and that's bears out with the XG. Beşiktaş won that battle, 2.47 to their 0.85. 19 shots to their 7, but only 5 big chances to their 2. Only 5. That's actually quite a few. 3 big chances missed, however, and they missed 1. They won the passing game with 355 completed to our 316, although we were more efficient with our passes, completing them at an 84% rate to their 82%. We committed 19 fouls to their 7, which for me is absurd. This ref was terrible. Another terrible ref, and that's one of the crappy things about being a Beşiktaş fan is you have to not just beat your opponent, but you have to kind of beat the ref too, every single time. It's worth mentioning that of our 19 shots, 8 were on target. For them, 3 of their 7. So, just even though we're not holding the ball a lot, we are getting a lot of quality opportunities now. 14 shots inside the box. Just great stuff. It's worth mentioning we each got 3 yellow cards, despite us being called for 17, or sorry, what was it? I think it was 17 fouls, right? 19 fouls, rather. Sorry, they committed 7. So we each got 3 cards, which speaks to how violent they were in those 7 fouls, but they should have been called for quite a few more. It was really a poorly refereed match, as you'd expect. Now, individual players. Who would I give my man of the match to? Let's talk about the top 10. I like to talk about all the guys rated above a 7, all the guys who are considered statistically to have played well. The best player was Valentin Rosier. I think a goal and an assist will do that for you. Plus solid defending and passing all around. Masuaku, next up, which is interesting. An assist for him, of course. Salih Uçan, next. No surprises there either. Lovely play from him. Then Wout Weghorst, also no surprises. Then Georges Cavin and Kudu. Shouldn't be any surprise there. Then Jackson Muleka. And again, right, all of these guys have scored and or assisted. Then Kartal Kayra Yilmaz, who also had an assist, right? That last goal by Rosier was assisted by him. Then Gedson Fernandes, which is now you're getting the guy who's not getting sort of fake points, because he didn't have any flashy stats, but he's still rated very highly at 7.49. Then Fabio Borini and Romain Saiz rounds out the top 10. Salih Dursun and Baye Diagne both also sort of just barely squeaked over a 7 rating. Necip Uysal just under with a 6.94. But so yeah, who would your man of the match be? Of course, you could easily point to Valentin Rosier, who had a goal and an assist and 3 shots, and he created a big chance. He was obviously a fantastic performer. You could also point to, of course, Masuaku, Salih Uçan. Just fantastic stuff all around. A goal was robbed from him with that lovely shot from outside. Not to mention the handball, but whatever. Wout Weghorst, obviously a goal scorer. Maybe not like a man of the match performance from him necessarily, although he's always such a valuable contributor, getting all over the pitch. He ran the second most after Gedson. Then you have Nkudu, of course, who was just a fantastic contributor. So far this season, maybe our most valuable, next to perhaps Salih Uçan, surprisingly. But for me, I'm going to go with the guy who actually didn't get the flashy stats, and I'll talk about why. So Gedson Fernandes, only 1 shot, right? you'd think that's not too flashy, but he had 2 out of 2 dribbles, 100% rate of success there. 1 accurate long ball, 100% there, out of 1. He was only dispossessed 3 times, despite having 51 touches, which, he was just kind of moving all around the pitch and not losing the ball whatsoever. And here's where I was especially happy with his performance in this match. 28 out of 32 accurate passes, 88% rate there. He created a chance. So his passing was phenomenal, and that's been a bit of a problem. He's had that, the ball stuck to his foot. He's fantastic on the ball, and he's been able to bring the ball from the back upfield with ease and with pace and with flair. But he's kind of been lacking with that final touch. And in this match, that was not the case. Only 4 errant passes out of 32. Fantastic. He really had a just amazing game, and I think an underspoken. I think a lot of people won't be on the radar because of the flashy performances that a number of guys had, and just the sheer ferocity that like Nkudu scored with. Just everyone brought so much positive energy into that first half. But Gedson, our 23-year-old Portuguese midfielder, is quietly settling in to the center of our midfield, and he could be that sort of missing piece. That the thing about Gedson, which I love so much, and ever since like Tolgay Arslan, right, and like all these characters. I mean, we could go further back probably, but my memory's not so sharp these days. But dating quite a ways back, Ozan has, he obviously peaked at a point and was fantastic, but this died out relatively quickly. Just so many guys in that position, in the middle of our team, in the middle of our midfield, ghosted for long stretches. And with Gedson, that's just never happening. Even when he's tired, clearly, he's out there, giving his last breath to sort of holding the ball and being a pain in our opponent's butt with possession, just keeping them out of a match. And so, he could kind of quietly but devastatingly be one of our key contributors when all things are said and done. And of course, I'm being a little sort of slick with it, trying to find someone under the radar. But I really do feel like he's at least needs to be in the conversation for man of the match. And just to be a sneaky guy, I'm going to give it to him. So, that's it for this match. A lovely 4-1 victory. And where does that leave us? Well, 7 points in 3 matches, 2 wins, 1 draw, a +4 goal differential. Leaves us in 3rd place, though tied in 1st on 7 points, just behind on goal differential. And that's because Fener has had some luck, we could say. A lot of cards handed out, right? 6-0 against Kasim Pasha was a big one. They won 4-2 against Adana Demir today. So, they have the same record, 2 wins and a draw. And they've honestly not looked particularly excellent, but they've been given a lot of help by refs, which, that means something. Because they maybe spent the most on refs this year or whatever it is. Right also ahead of us is Başakşehir, and they're only on a +6 goal differential, right? Only two better than us. But what's interesting is they've yet to allow a goal. 2 wins and a draw, of course, as well. But they beat Kayseri 2-0. They drew Konya 0-0 on the road. That's of note. And they beat Kasim Pasha 4-0. So they've yet to be scored on, which is fairly interesting. Konya, of course, is a formidable opponent in Konya. With that said, they're not scoring at all this year. So perhaps, they haven't, by they, I mean, Başakşehir has yet to be really tested in that regard. But then it's us in 3rd. Gaziantep also has 7 points, +2 goal differential. And then you have a bunch of teams with 6 points. Antalyaspor, Adana Demir, Giresun, Galatasaray, and Trabzon, who's in 9th, because they are on a 0 goal differential. They've been fairly ugly this season, if we're all going to be honest about it. Gotten quite lucky. And then you have Konya. You know, the 5 pointers are Konya and Alanya in 10th and 11th. In relegation, you've got Kasim Pasha, who has yet to score and have allowed 11 goals. 0 points, of course. Istanbulspor, who are also yet to score and have allowed 7 goals. And then Fatih Karagümrük, who've only played twice in their defense. Same goes for Hatay, which is interesting, and Ankaragücü. So a number of teams have had bye weeks. As for Fatih Karagümrük, you know, they're at a -5 and Hatay is at a -2. You'd expect both of them to potentially pass Umraniye and maybe Ankaragücü. Sivas has come out quite weak, which is good news for us, as a matter of fact. Which, like, I suppose, let's talk about it. Our next match is this coming Monday, August 29th. Again at 2:45, a late start time, 2:45 p.m. here in New York City. Check your local listings. I believe that's 9:45 p.m. locally in Turkey. We're at home again against Sivas, which is interesting. 2 home games in a row. I'm not complaining. But yeah, you know, Alanya on the road is going to be a toughie. So I feel like we've earned it. But yeah, so we have Sivas at home, 2:45, Monday, August 29th. The following weekend we'll play Ankaragücü, then Başakşehir, which should be our first real challenge, Sunday, September 11th. That said, knock on wood, as far as Sivas and Ankaragücü not being a challenge, they may well be, right? This is the Turkish Super League. Anything can happen. Has been proven time and time again. But yeah, a great start for Beşiktaş, no doubt about that. I think we have a lot to be excited about. Should be some fun transfer news going into, prior to this upcoming match against Sivas. So maybe bonus content incoming if we get like a DELE ALLI or something where Kaan can snag an interview and do his thing in that regard. But either way, we will of course be back at the very least by this time next week to talk about Beşiktaş Sivas. So before then, follow us on Twitter at Eagles_podcast. Follow myself at Sir_Writes_a lot. Follow us on Instagram, Black Eagles Podcast, one word. And of course, let's go Beşiktaş! Woo! And for the Ismail haters, it's been a rough time for you folks, perhaps. Although, still some stuff to criticize, of course, via these subs. But let's enjoy this. That was a good win. We're looking good. Good pressing football. Lots to look forward to. I'm excited. Hopefully we beat Sivas.
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.